Yo, what's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of hashtag CB99 Talks. I'm Combo Breaker 99, and this is episode 39, man. Yeah, man, I just wanted to come back and do a real quick episode with y'all. This is going to be a quick one. I just want to go back and talk about a few things from the past few weeks. Just some different things I took from different fights that went down that I just want to share with y'all. So, yeah, man, like the main theme of this episode is patience and growth. And one of the things I've seen in a few fights this past weekend, MMA and boxing was, patience. I was just able to see how, patience was able to really help a few fighters really get through what they were going through as far as in the ring and out of the octagon. Whenever you're looking at fighters like, for example, one of the fights I looked at the past Friday, not this past Friday, but the previous, was Ali Akhmedov versus Carlos Gongora. And that was just a good example of patience in the ring. Patience in the ring, just being steady, not getting too over anxious. When somebody keeps coming at you, putting that pressure on you, you just stay in there, you stay in the fight, and you just keep on doing what you do, and eventually you'll get the win. You will overcome that obstacle. And also, it was another thing that just popped in my mind about Robertson versus Santos. Just something I want to talk about too in that aspect of patience and growth as a fighter. Also want to talk about the return of Joannna, which I'll be brief on in this one. It's something I'll revisit, throughout the year, whenever she has some fight news really announced. But I just want to go back and talk to y'all about some of the things I talked on in the live stream that I've done about the return of Joannna and, why her presence is still needed in the strawweight division. Then I want to revisit Canelo, after Canelo, his dominant performance over Caleb Smith, what that performance means and what should be next for Canelo Alvarez. But yeah, man, just going back up here, man, patience and growth. Like I said, patience is very important in the ring and outside of the ring. And like I said, good example of it was Carlos Gongora versus Ali Akhmedov. Carlos Gongora, this was a guy who took the fight on two-week notice, came in, cut down like 10-20 pounds for this fight. Then he went in there as the underdog, against people kind of saw him as food. Even though he was undefeated, they saw him as food against an undefeated fighter that's promoted by Golovkin. So he went in there, and I did a post-fight discussion video on this fight. But he just went in there, overcame the pressure, the power punching of a guy like Ali Akhmedov. He just stayed into the fight, took some hard shots, but he just stayed calm, cool, and relaxed. If you just look at his facial expression, his body language, you could tell he was a fighter that was in there saying, okay, I got this. And I just feel like that's something a lot of fighters, they have to follow. You just go in there. If somebody comes straight at you and they really want to take you out, they want to put that pressure on you, and you got the judges against you, and even the way the commentators talk, sometimes they're against you too. That's a lot of pressure. But you still have to have patience in these situations, man, because the patience and the calmness, that will favor you in the long run. Because if you start to play into if you start to play into the favorite, if you start to play into their game plan, it'll make you over anxious. It'll stress you out. It'll frustrate you, and it'll kind of make you second guess yourself. At the same time, it'll turn into psyching you out. It'll psych you out and say, okay, maybe I am supposed to lose in this situation. If Carlos Gongora was a fighter that says, okay, this is the power puncher and he's the favorite, if he kept thinking that way, then he's going to say eventually I got to lay down for him. But Carlos Gongora, he went in there, came in there with his own game plan and just said, okay, I'm going to be patient. I'm going to wait this out. I know what he's going to bring to the table, and I'm going to just keep on doing me. And that's what he did. Good sharp left hands in this fight. Good, precise, accurate punches in this fight, while the power puncher continued to throw out of his element and try to take him out, constantly putting pressure on him and trying to land big shots. But he just stayed in there, and like I said, took it all the way to the 12th round and scored a good, solid knockout over the favorite in Ali Akhmedov. But yeah, man, this is just one of those situations. Like I said, you can really look at it and just compare it to life. There's going to be times whenever you got to be patient with people. There's going to be people who put that type of pressure on you in life, and they really come at you and try to frustrate you, make you over anxious. But you just got to say, I got to stay calm, cool, and collected, because the more you stay patient, the more you're clear-headed. You stay clear-headed, and you'll be able to think and say, okay, I can make the right choices for myself. I can make the right choices for myself, and I can come out with what I want in this situation. And that's what Carlos Gongora did in this fight. He took some heavy shots, but he said, okay, I know what this guy's bringing to the table. Let me just draw this out a little bit longer. Because most times, like I said, in boxing, a lot of people get scared of punchers, and they're already psyched out. Whether if you go in there with a heavy puncher, you're automatically thinking, okay, when this guy hits me in the face, I'm supposed to go down. But not all the time. If you meet that puncher head on, or if you continue to take him into deep waters, that power is gonna go down sooner or later, especially if they're not known to throw high volumes of punches. And that's what Carlos Gongora, he factored in. He said, okay, let me take my time in this fight and just stay calm, stay cool, and stay collected, and eventually I'll get him down. So yeah, man. That's what I just kind of took from that fight. It was a good fight. Like I said, 2 weeks ago on that Golovkin card. I didn't watch the Golovkin fight though. I didn't even want to see that mismatch. I just wanted to check this one out here because Carlos Gongora went in there, took the fight on 2 week notice, and pulled off the upset. And also patience, man. Like, patience and growth is important in a fight. Another fight that I took it from another fight with Tyler Santos and Jillian Robertson. I say patience because Tyler Santos is a fighter who's very talented. Had a rough rocky start in the UFC. She's came away with one. She's 1-1. Her record is 1-1. One win over Molly McCann and one loss over Mara Romero Barella. And based off of that, a lot of people felt like Jillian Robertson was the favorite in this fight. But like I said, even going off the eye test, I knew that for some reason, something in me was telling me that, Tyler Santos is ready. She's shown a lot of patience, even with all these cancellations. She stayed steady. She stayed calm. She stayed in training, always prepared for that fight. Then there was another cancellation. I think she had a total like 12, 14 cancellations leading up to this Jillian Robertson fight, throughout her UFC signing, which is crazy. But yeah, man. When she went in there in this fight, again, a lot of people felt like Jillian Robertson had the ground game to take somebody like Tyler Santos out. But Tyler Santos proved everybody wrong. Just because she doesn't have 5, 6, 7 wins in the UFC, she still has that skill. And based off the eye test, that physical strength and that skill set and technique to take a fighter out like Jillian Robertson. It was just the fact that Jillian Robertson has never faced anybody like her before. Jillian Robertson may have this many wins over this caliber of opponents, but Tyler Santos is that fighter levels above her. She just hasn't had a chance to show it. And I know it's always show and prove in the fight game, but at the same time, you got to go by the eye test in certain situations. I know we couldn't go by resume because she's stopped a lot of people that we haven't heard of, but at the same time, if you go back and look at body language, like I said, Tyler Santos is the much physically stronger fighter. Look at her core, her foundation, her legs, her body language. Much more of a stronger fighter than Jillian Robertson. Now, Jillian Robertson is good on the ground. She's strong on that level, but she's not the physically strong inside fighter or more close to complete fighter like Tyler Santos was. And Tyler Santos, like I said, man, like, she really went in there and showed you that, look, I have all this skill and I'm ready to prove it. Having that patience really showed you that, look, all this time she was trying her best to stay ready. She was training, and at the same time, instead of building up frustration, she was building up hunger. That's what was going on, like, throughout these postponements and all these other fighters not being able to show up for a fight with Tyler Santos. All that time, instead of building up frustration, well, I'm sure, every fighter gets a little frustrated, but, getting angry, she was building up hunger. She was building up that momentum more so. And like I said, momentum in this case was very, very, it was very, very critical to her performance. Whether, some people look at resume. That's why I was also talking about resume versus momentum, and also had eye test versus resume. Just different situations where you could really like match, use these two different things in these different situations. But yeah, man, Tyler Santos, like I said, shout out to Tyler. After a rough start in the UFC, not even like on a big like losing streak, just constantly having so many fight postponements and only going 1-1 since she's been signed. Well, she's 2-1 now, but just staying patient and then coming in there and making a big statement against a fighter like Jillian Robertson, who is also a fighter that was put on there as having one of the longest winning streaks and most wins in the flyweight division. That's a solid win for Tyler Santos. But yeah, man, like I said, patience is growth, very important in the game. You really have to know how to grow as a fighter as well, which is something going back to Ali Akhmedov, he has to learn from here. See Carlos Gongora, he was a fighter who showed growth inside the ring. So yeah, man, with Tyler Santos, I really feel like one of the things that I took away from her performance and just leading up to this fight was patience. She was a fighter that had a lot of cancellations, a lot of postponements, but she just stayed patient. She just stayed focused. And I noticed that because, it showed in her performance. She didn't come in there frustrated. You haven't really heard too much frustration from her outside of the octagon. Instead of building up like that anxiety and anger for having all these fights, all these other fighters pull out of their fights with her, she was building up hunger, momentum. She was more so getting hungry every time. Every time somebody pulled out, she just go back to the gym and say, okay, let me get ready. Let me stay ready. And again, that's just showcasing her performance. And, she came away with a solid win over a fighter in Jillian Robertson, who had one of the most wins in the flyweight division. So again, this was just one of those situations where I said, okay, I can really relate to a fighter like this because, she shows patience. And that's something we always have to do in life. We have to say, okay, we can't get over anxious here. We just have to wait, and our opportunity will come for whatever it is, And another thing, like I said, with growth, going back to the Ali Akhmedov fight and Carlos Gongora fight, growth is very important. I mean, it's important outside of the ring, but it's at the same time you have to grow as a fighter when you're performing. Somebody like Ali Akhmedov, just going in there with the same game plan, knockout, you could really see that there was no growth there. It's important that you have to have growth with different styles. Your mind has to evolve as you make moves in the ring. I know there's only so much you can do in training, but like I've heard other fighters say before, what goes on in the actual fight, it's a different atmosphere. It's a different atmosphere. You can spar all day, you can train all day, you can drill all day, but it's not the same as whenever you get into the boxing ring or you get into the octagon. That's whenever you really show improve, and that's wherever you really show what it is you have. That's where you really can show what you have. And somebody like Ali Akhmedov, the way he had the same approach, showed you that he wasn't really growing, and he's got to grow. As a puncher, he has to grow. He has to show other levels, against guys who are going to just walk through him or try to take him into deep waters like they did. You got to go in there and say, okay, this guy can take my punch. At the same time, he's hitting me back. It's time to switch levels. It's time to box a little bit more. It's time to become a calculated puncher and not just a pressure puncher where I think he's going to fold like everybody else. Because just because the last 17 guys that you knocked out folded doesn't necessarily mean this next guy, number 18, is going to fold. You know what I mean? And I think that that's something that Ali Akhmedov, he's going to have to learn in the future. Whereas Gongora, he already had that growth. He went in there and said, okay, I know what this guy's bringing to the table. Let me just walk him down, meet him in the middle. Let me clinch him up, smother him, and hit him with 1 or 2 single shots and really do damage on him. My 1 or 2 will do more damage than his 3 or 4 because I'm taking him into deep waters. It's some growth that Carlos Gongora already had there. Jillian Robertson, another fighter who has to show growth. I mean, solid on the ground, very good at submitting fighters, but how she gets fighters to the ground, how she shoots in for her takedowns, she's got to evolve there. You got to be a fighter that goes in there, starts jabbing your way in, starts feinting more with the takedowns, landing big shots to get fighters to the ground instead of just shooting in for the telegraph takedown. Jillian Robertson has to grow there. She's got to be quicker on the feet, more assertive with her punches, with her strikes, be committed to more kicks, and fight on the inside more. Like I said, it's one thing if you're in like a jiu-jitsu tournament, if that's what it is, if you're on the ground, good. That's all that's needed. But in mixed martial arts, you got to really be able to get in there, man. You got to know how to get your opponents to the ground. Because if you're dealing with somebody with physical strength, takedown defense, and all of that, all of the above, it's going to be a long night for you. So you got to grow. You got to grow. You got to add more levels to your game. If you really want to get to that next level, if you want to get that belt, growth is necessary. Again, like in life, man, like if you want to stay at the same gig, if you want to stay in the same position all the time, then that's fine. But at the same time, if you want more, but you continue to question why you didn't get more, are you growing? Are you really growing? Are you trying to improve? Are you trying to do things differently? That's the question you got to ask yourself. So yeah, that's for fighters, in the ring. That's for everyday people, man. But yeah, man, real quick, man, like I said with Joannna, I talked about this on a live stream, did a video about her returning to the octagon. But yeah, just for the listeners on my podcast here, Joannna returning to 115 in 2021, I think it's necessary. Again, because I just feel like she's one of those fighters that adds the theatrics, if you will. She adds that storyline to the game, with just her overall presence. She's a fighter that boasts confidence, can be real cocky at the same time, but she finds a good balance there. You got to be honest. Like, if you love her or you hate her, even though she was talking trash, even though she was up in your face, even though she's like staring you down and pissing you off or saying crazy things all the time, she is that fighter that would back it up. And that's why I say she's needed. Like, if you were just all theatrics and you weren't performing, then hey, you gotta go. You gotta go. But if you're a fighter that can find that balance, fighters like Floyd Mayweather, they say crazy stuff, but when they get in there, they back it up. You know what I mean? You got to be that type of fighter. But yeah, man, what I really think too with Joannna is the one thing I really like about her was the fact that she was very, very consistent. Very consistent as a strawweight champion. Like to stay active, like to stay in there to fight. When she had the belt, she wanted that belt and she needed that belt. She needed to be champion, and it would always show in her performances. So again, that's something that's really needed in the strawweight division. Shout out to Rose. She won the belt, but after she won it, she was saying that the championship didn't really mean anything. Like, that physical belt didn't mean anything, but it does if that's what you fought for. If you fought your way to the top, it does have to stand for something, because that's just that physical belt. Of course, it's just possession, but it is a sign. It's actual physical sign that you beat the best, that you fought the best, you faced the best, and you beat the best. So that does stand for something. And since then, she hasn't been as consistent. Of course, she's lost the title, and she's getting ready to line up for the title now. But I just feel like in Joanna's performances when she was at 115, she really did come in there and she performed. She stayed dedicated. She was always there. Even in her losses, she was always there and always working hard, always training hard. And I think that's another element that I really enjoyed about her was her training. She would really go in there and work hard. Just watching her train was a good thing. Watching her improve her skill set, her work on her technique, all of that. Everything that you've seen about her, leading up into the octagon, her storyline was always fascinating. Love her or hate her, like I said, she says some stupid things sometimes, and I lost a little bit of respect for her on some of her bullying tactics. But as a fighter, whenever she would go in there and perform, I said, man, this girl's got a good jab. Man, this girl has technique. This girl is strong. She just has a lot of elements of a fighter that I do like. So yeah, man. Moving forward, hopefully in 2021, we get her back in the octagon. Like I said, I'd like to see her in there with a Joannna, and that would be a good fight. And maybe that would lead to a rematch with Weili and, Weili Rose winner, the winner of that fight. That would probably lead to that. But yeah, man, let me know in the comment section what y'all think. I've talked about this already. Joannna, we discussed it before. So yeah, Canelo Alvarez, man. Really just wanted to talk about Canelo Alvarez as a fighter. A little bit about his performance against Caleb Smith. Real quick, Caleb Smith. I felt like he was a game opponent. Because I know a few years ago everybody was saying whenever Canelo fought Rocky Fielding, everybody was like, yo, why ain't you fighting Caleb Smith? So I'm like, yeah, Caleb Smith, Benavidez, Caleb Plant, between those three, Caleb Smith would be a good fight. But then all of a sudden I heard a lot of people saying Caleb Smith is a cherry pick now when Canelo chose to fight him. I feel like Caleb Smith was better than a Rocky Fielding or a Abner Yildirim. I feel like he was better than those opponents. So outside of the ring, I test again. Once again, I was like, okay, Caleb Smith is a legit guy, the winner of the World Boxing Super 6. So this is a legit guy, 6'3", got like a 7-inch reach advantage. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, definitely had the height advantage in this fight. So on the outside, yeah, it looked like a good challenge for Canelo. But as far as what happened in the ring, that was a different story. Caleb Smith, in my opinion, I know I got some hate for this, but I felt like Caleb Smith didn't really come in there to win this fight. He just kind of went through the motions to survive. I know what surviving looks like, and I know what actually, fighting your ass off looks like. I felt like Caleb Smith had the power to hurt Canelo. He had the jab to get the respect and the reach and actually box from the outside. I'm sure they've went through this before. I know in the John Ryder fight with Caleb Smith, he did have a rough time with John Ryder, but it seems like since then they would have made some improvements and said, okay, you are the bigger, taller guy. It's time to work that jab. It's time to be assertive. But in this fight, Canelo from round 1 to 12 did the same thing. He just walked the taller man down, out jabbed the taller man, beat the taller man up to the body, to the head, and Caleb Smith never really asserted his punch. He never really asserted himself. Landed some volume here and there, a couple good right hands, a few jabs, but nothing really to hurt Canelo. I know this guy had the power to hurt Canelo. It was just all about coming to actually win. And in my opinion, I feel like Caleb Smith didn't come to win. Canelo just had his way. He was able to punch at all angles, punch him coming forward, on the inside, like I said, to the body, to the head, right hands up top, almost stopped him. I feel like I thought the fight was about to get stopped in like 9th or 10th, but nah, man, Caleb Smith just stayed in there to survive. And if you look at the arm too, like Canelo was having fun in there. He was trying different things. I mean, he damaged or ruptured that tricep up, on the left arm of Caleb Smith just with those big right hands. He just constantly kept hitting him there. And you're thinking like, okay, Caleb was blocking these shots, but no, like they're damaging. That's how powerful Canelo was in there and how dominant he was. He was just hitting him anywhere, doing big damage to the face, like I said, to the tricep. So when you really look at it, man, it was just like, okay, what was Caleb Smith his plan? Just to come in there, get a paycheck, and just to survive? And I think a lot of people felt that way. A lot of people felt like he just came in there to just stay in there and just kind of go through the motions. But as for Canelo, I'm not really blaming him. I'm not saying it's his fault, because I did say out of the super middleweights, he needs to fight either Caleb Smith, Benavidez, or Caleb Plant. I did say that, and he did beat this guy, so I give him credit for what he was able to do against. But with that being said, he needs to go after the guys that we know have been talking. The guys who have been showing improvement and have been answering questions. Guys who have been showing great skill set and technique on the way up, that grabbed the belt, Caleb Plant. Guys who throw a lot of punches, guys who are big, strong, and want that fight, Benavidez. Guys who are willing to move up, that have belts from lower weights. Jermall Charlo went in there, fought Derevchenko, answered questions about that, and said, okay, I can beat a guy like Derevchenko, and I've got the power and the strength and the size. I can move up to 168. So there's a Charlo fight as well. So yeah, there's so many other fights out here that could solidify Canelo Alvarez's game, or excuse me, his his resume, and his legacy. I know he has a lot of names now on there, but if you go back and look too, okay, there's some guys he's fought at the right time, like Sergey Kovalev, Rocky Fielding. There's still guys out there that didn't really come to put up the fight like I feel like a Benavidez or Plant would or a Charlo would. I feel like guys like that would. Then there's awkward styles like Billy Joe Saunders out there for him. So there's a good number of fighters out there from 160 up to 168, even 175 that would be really good tests for Canelo even at this point. Canelo just turned 30. He's still 30, so I feel like he still has a few more good fights and some good tests in there for him. Anybody from Better BF to Jermall Charlo, So I just feel like the Caleb Smith fight, on paper, on the outside, it was a good challenge, but after seeing what he did, then it's like, nah, man, you got to start or not blaming Canelo, but you just got to start digging now for these guys that who do want it. That's pretty much how I feel on it. But like I said, it ain't no hate to Canelo, because Canelo is one of my favorite fighters to watch. I like his style. I just feel like there's so many other names like Jamal, Beterbiev at 175, Benavidez, Caleb Plant, so many different styles and hungry guys out there that want that chance. They want that chance to prove their greatness as well. But yeah, man, that's all I got on this one, guys. Like I said, I just kind of want to revisit some topics. I'm doing this one on the go, on the fly. Once again, patience and growth is important in the octagon, in the ring, and outside of life. You got to be patient in life. Like I said, being patient, it keeps your mind clear. It keeps the vision clear. It keeps the focus. It keeps your focus on the task at hand clear. And it helps open up doors. Like I said, more opportunities will open up for you the longer you stay patient. I'm not saying you need to prolong and procrastinate. Don't get that confused now. Procrastination and patience is two different things. Putting things off, that's one thing. But being patient and waiting for opportunities to open up, that's another. As long as you know it's coming, and as long as you got a game plan. And growing is important, man. Growth. Some of these fighters, you gotta learn. You gotta learn new things. You gotta go in there, make proper adjustments, and build up the skill set if you are going for the top. But if you're not, then okay. Then hey, I understand that too. But if you're in the game and you continue to say, I'm the best, why ain't I getting this? Are you growing as a fighter? That's the question. But yeah, like I said, I want to see Joannna return in 2021. More videos coming, about the strawweight division. I also want to see Canelo in there with Charlo, Beterbiev, Plant, Benavidez. At least three of them names. At least three of them names, man. Because I remember when Floyd, he called out De La Hoya, Ricky Hatton, and Winky Wright. At least we got 2 out of 3 of them names. I know Floyd didn't want no Winky Wright. That would have been crazy. I'm actually do a video on that sometime. But yeah, man, that's it for this episode. This was just a real quick one I wanted to drop on y'all. Make sure y'all subscribe to the podcast. Actually, just subscribe to my YouTube channel to hear the podcast for now. But I am going to put the podcast on cb99talks.com coming in 2021. And I'll be back with my year-end review episode, live episode, December 28th. So yeah, man, that's all I got, guys. Make sure y'all subscribe. And yeah, thanks to everybody that comes in my live streams and listen to my podcast now. Combo Breaker 99. I'm out. Subscribe. Peace.